Welcome to Life Epistles. Our focus on this channel is to bring to you spiritual teachings that explain the mysteries of life. This is the 15th episode, and the topic is the spiritual exercises of retrospection and concentration. Our source of information is the Western Wisdom Teachings. What is our objective? For today's lecture, you should appreciate the importance of spiritual exercises, detect the dangerous ones and how to avoid them, and finally, be familiar with the safe ones and how to apply them to increase your spirituality. What is the content? We'll provide an introduction and a background. We'll explain what we mean by spiritual exercises. We will give the justification. We'll also look at the importance of the spiritual exercises. We'll give the details of retrospection and concentration, their benefits and conditions for performing those exercises, and then we will conclude. Our reference for this lecture can be drawn from lecture number 2, the various bodies of a human being, lecture number 7, positive versus negative spiritual development, and lecture number 10, the difference between Western esoteric Christianity and Eastern teachings. My name is Seddoh Bokor. Let us begin. There comes a time in the life of the individual who is having a spiritual awakening when he or she feels that there are things beyond the physical, a feeling of the supernatural which cannot be easily described but better experienced. He or she wants to know more about life and how connected. For such an individual, the prompting comes from within, from the spirit, the owner of the physical body, unseen but sitting a few inches below the junction of the two eyebrows. Some other people experience this spiritual edge through external triggers such as observation, spiritual encounter, and guidance. For some other people, this prompting does not arise at all because they are not yet ready and will rather crave for an argument. Since matters of spirituality are most often inwardly revealed in due season, it will serve no purpose to dispute such a person. Even for those who have the call, the multiplicity and variations of religious phenomena tend to cloud the right answers at times. We are reminded in Mathew chapter 19, verse 16 to 22, where Christ Jesus advised the rich young man. We read, "Now behold, one came and said to him, 'Good teacher, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life?' So he said to him, 'Why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. But if you want to enter into life, keep the commandments.' He said to him, 'Which ones?' Jesus said, 'You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and your mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself.' The young man said to him, 'All these things I have kept from my youth. What do I still lack?' Jesus said to him, 'If you want to be perfect, go, sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me.' But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions." The first requirement or foundation for spiritual development is knowing God, loving one another, which is agape love, and selfless service. The spiritual exercises are complementary, so do not bank your hope on only spiritual exercises. You need to know God, you need to love one another, and you need to offer selfless service. You can do thousands of spiritual exercises, but without fulfilling the first requirement, there will be no progress, or if any at all. That will be negative development because you will not have followed the positive path. What do we mean by the positive path? The individual should manifest or be guided by the soul qualities of conscience and virtue. They should become the guiding principles of conduct. So if you are weak in conscience, if you are without any virtue, and you say you want to develop spiritually, know that your development may be the negative one. The positive spiritual development thrives on virtue and conscience, the ability to decipher between wrong and right, good and bad, and choosing that which is right. That is what conscience is telling us. So, the individual should focus more on the higher desires. So, if you want to develop positively on the positive path, you should focus more on the higher desires and move away from the digressions of the lower ones. What are the lower desires? Reference is made to Galatians 5, chapter 19 to 21. We are always reminded about the lower desires, such as the coarse desires of materiality, greed, selfishness, hatred, jealousy, stealing, deception, insincerity, fraud, forgery, witchcraft, intemperate behavior, vengeful, malpractice, sensuality, and all that, they constitute lower desires. These low desires do not add anything to our spiritual growth. Anybody who lives by them is only picking low materials from the lower desire world. Eventually, the low desires will have to be purged for the spirit to know that the purpose of life is not about arguing against the existence of God or having an insatiable appetite for materiality. No, that is not the purpose of life. Rather, let's focus on the higher desires. And once again, Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 to 26 gives us a reminder. Unconditional love and altruism, caring and sharing, compassion, truthfulness, transparency, accountability, selfless service to others, peacemaking, honesty, benevolence, forgiveness, and having self-control. Those are some of the higher desires that we need to pursue. The higher desires link to the higher regions of soul life, soul light, and soul power in the desire world, in the spiritual world. The higher desires take us to those higher regions of the desire world. Once again, we reproduce the following diagram. Focus, please, on the green colored one. They are the higher regions of the desire world, where we have the soul power, the soul light, and soul life. That region is a blissful state, driven by the force of attraction. Unlike the lower one, especially where we have the red color, we have that region as a region of passion and sensual desires. They are the low desires, and there is always a painful expiation by the force of repulsion in that region. So we must move away from the low desires to the higher desires. It is not a one-off event, but once we keep striving, gradually we will move away from the low desires to the high desires. So, how we interact with people and our character are a gauge of where we stand on the ladder of spirituality. The selfless service we render is basic to the foundation we lay for spiritual development. Our character speaks to our level of spiritual development. Selfless service adds an essence to the soul body or the spiritual body, which is the house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. In this regard, no one can claim success in spiritual pursuit without performing his or her duty to family, to country, and to humanity. You need to perform those things first if you seek to fulfill spiritual conditions the positive way. To selfishly set aside everything and live solely for your own spiritual advancement is as reprehensible as not to care for the spiritual life at all. Devoting yourself to the welfare of those dependent upon you leads to cultivating the essential quality of faithfulness. So, if the individual is unfaithful in doing what is necessary in the material world, how can he or she be entrusted with greater responsibility that comes with spirituality? Indeed, spirituality comes with greater responsibility. Remember Mathew chapter 23, verse 11 and 12, where we read, "But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted." Having given the introduction and to point out clearly that we cannot be talking about spiritual development without taking a look at our own character, our desires, we'll now move to look at the spiritual exercises. Spiritual exercises are definite and conscious activities that are performed on a regular basis by the individual who seeks spiritual development. They are carried out voluntarily based on choice, not under any compulsion. Why spiritual exercises? Just as we feed the physical body with nutrients so that the cells do not starve to our detriment, the spiritual exercises are definite steps to awaken dormant spiritual faculties and set them in motion. It is the spiritual exercises that will support the individual to explore his or her spiritual nature and provide the enablement for knowing oneself better. By the exercises, the spiritual faculties are fed with the spiritual food so that they can be activated and function. Until these spiritual faculties are awakened and active, we are spiritually dead. What is the importance of the spiritual exercises? It is to voluntarily support the natural process of spiritual development, which is ongoing in everybody, whether the person knows it or not. It is a natural process that we all develop spiritually. So it is taking place in everybody, whether you know it or you don't know it, it is taking place. The exercises enable the individual to consciously increase his or her vibration to a higher level. That is what is differentiating the spiritual exercises from the ordinary one. The exercises support the acquisition of first-hand information about the superphysical realm. They provide the opportunity to consciously have access and become familiar with the supernatural realm, which we enter unconsciously during sleep, but eventually go after death. It is the same spiritual world we go when we sleep, but we are unconscious. These exercises definitely and consciously take you there. They make it possible for the individual to spiritually develop faster and be ready for the next phase in the spiral evolution of humanity. They help develop pioneers, leaders who set the standard, who help and show others how to also develop their spiritual faculties. So the exercises are very, very important. Let's look at this background information. We are taking you back a bit. In the journey of humanity, as spirits, we are spirits clothed in flesh. Every human being is a spirit clothed in flesh. So in the journey through matter, as we are doing now, once upon a time, we were once spiritually active. When we got to the second and the third stages of the descent, we were then not conscious of our physical bodies or the physical environment, but spiritually, we were very conscious and active, doing things in the spiritual world, in the other realms. We could see and do things spiritually using the pituitary and the pineal glands that were connected to the autonomic nervous system, the involuntary one. So we were functioning spiritually, even though we were in this physical body. We had no will then, so we were like automatons. And once again, we bring you this diagram for you to see the second stage and the third stage which we are referring to. The second stage is in the desire world. The third stage is in the etheric region. We were there and we were functioning in the spiritual world, but without being conscious of the external body or environment. The sense centers, we had sense centers in the spiritual body that we were using. Those sense centers of the desire body were spinning around counterclockwise. So when we were coming down in the desire body, our sense centers were spinning. They were spinning but anti-clockwise direction. They were following negatively the motion of the Earth planet, which revolves on its axis in that direction. That is how the Earth planet revolves. This same counterclockwise movement of the sense centers is found with mediums or spirit controls. And we bring you a picture of it for you to see how the sense centers move. Over here in this diagram, you can clearly see that it moves in anti-clockwise direction. In most people or ordinary people, these sense centers are inactive. They are not active at all in most people. But true development will set them spinning in clockwise direction. And that is where the difficulty is in positive spiritual development, which the exercises seek to do to make these sense centers spin in a clockwise direction. Once again, we produce a picture of the inactive movement of the currents in the desire body of the ordinary person. And here we produce another picture of the voluntary movement of the currents of the desire body. This is the voluntary movement. The sense centers are revolving. They are spinning in a clockwise direction. This is where humanity is heading. Those who do well, not just anybody. Those who do well. This is the direction. And we compare all the three for you to see that there are differences. The middle picture shows the ordinary person who has his or her current moving more or less in a haphazard manner. The one to the right is the involuntary one, which is moving anti-clockwise, whereas the one to the extreme left is the voluntary one, where we are heading. Humanity is now in the fourth stage of the journey. We have reached the fourth stage of this journey. During the third and the fourth movement of the spiritual impulse, in this fourth stage, The connection of the pituitary and the pineal glands with the cerebrospinal nervous system has been slowly building and is now more or less complete for every human being. To regain contact with the inner worlds, to regain contact with the spiritual worlds, all that remains to be done is the reawakening of the pituitary and the pineal glands. That is what humanity has to do, to reawaken those glands. And we show a picture of the pituitary and the pineal gland, and we give credit to National Cancer Institute, US. The pituitary and the pineal glands are deep in the brain. They are the organs that will have to be reawoken, and the forces that played in them will merge. When the pituitary and the pineal glands are reawakened, humanity will again possess the faculty of perception in the higher worlds on a grander scale than formerly, because the connection will be with the voluntary nervous system. Now the connection will no longer be the involuntary, but the connection will be with the voluntary nervous system, and therefore under the will, under the control of the will. No more involuntary. Through this inner spiritual faculty, all avenues of knowledge will be opened, and humanity will have a means of acquiring knowledge which is higher than all the methods we have presently. In developing spiritually, there is a most important distinction to be made, and we want to stress it here. We really want to stress this, that there is a distinction that is to be made. The power which enables a person to see in the spiritual world is not identical with the power of entering that spiritual world and functioning over there. They are two separate things, though they are intertwined. Although the voluntary positively developed person is able to see in the spiritual world or the desire world and distinguish the true from the false, he or she cannot enter and function therein automatically. It is not automatic that once you can see the spiritual world, then automatically you can enter and function. No. Therefore, esoteric training does not only open up the individual's inner vision, but at the proper time, further exercises are given to furnish the individual with a vehicle to function in the inner worlds in a perfectly self-conscious manner. And that vehicle is the spiritual body or the soul body. And that is to be born again, as referred in John chapter 3. And we gave a full lecture on this in our lecture number 14. You may go back and read that. There are many spiritual exercises. They are all aimed at sensitizing the spiritual faculties. And here are examples: prayer, fasting, visualization, breathing exercises, yoga, energy transfer or energy therapy, space gazing, crystal gazing, pocket shrines, pendulum board dowsing, Ouija board, and planchette operation. These are all exercises or practices that are carried on spiritually. But there are dangers associated with some of them, if not all of them. Some of these exercises may be harmful to the practitioner if care is not taken. Why are we saying so? They may lead to a premature break at the points where the dense body and the spiritual bodies are connected. If you are not careful and you go into them just like that, that may lead to a break in the connection between the dense body and the spiritual vehicles. 2, they may force the spirit out of the body, resulting in death or insanity. 3, they can expose or make the body vulnerable to possession by external entities. So if you are into those practices, you need to be careful. The Western wisdom teaches gives 7 spiritual exercises which are 100% safe. And these exercises include retrospection, concentration, observation, discrimination, meditation, contemplation, and adoration. They are safe. Today, we will talk about 2 of the exercises, retrospection and concentration. What is retrospection? Retrospection is about judging oneself and eradicating vice or sin or evil by reforming character. It begins with character. It is an evening exercise of greater value than any other method in spiritual growth and development. It has such a far-reaching effect that it enables the individual to learn now not only the lessons of this life, but lessons ordinarily reserved for future lives. How is retrospection done? After going to bed at night, the body should be relaxed. Then the individual begins to review the sins of the day in reverse order. The key word here is reverse order. Starting with the events of the evening, then the occurrences of the afternoon, of the forenoon, and the morning. You should endeavor to picture to yourself each sin as faithfully as possible. Seek to reproduce before your mind's eye all that took place in each pictured scene with one single purpose, judging your actions, whether good or bad. Ascertaining whether your words conveyed the meaning you intended or you gave a false impression. Whether you overstated or understated in relating experiences to others. You should review your moral attitude in relation to each of the sins. At meals, did you eat to live, or did you live to eat, to please the palate? You need to judge yourself and blame where blame is due, praise where merited. Be remorseful and try to feel the pain of wrongdoing. The person you hurt, feel that pain and make amends. Be reconciled as early as possible. Praise yourself and try to feel the joy for the good deeds done in the day. So you do not only judge yourself for the bad things that you have done and feel remorseful for that, you also look at the good things that you have done during the day and praise yourself during retrospection. What are the benefits of retrospection? In the first place, we perform the work of restoration of bodily harmony consciously and in a shorter time than the desired body can do during sleep. And we are going to explain it. Leaving a larger portion of the night for outside work than otherwise possible. Now, this is the explanation where we are saying that we restore harmony to the body faster when we do retrospection. In waking hours, the physical atoms are energized by the etheric atoms. And that is how it is for all of us, so that we can do all the things that we do. But there comes a time that the body becomes sluggish and does not respond to the needs of the spirit in a timely manner. The energy level of the etheric atoms is low. Hence, the spirit withdraws from the body in a state we call sleep. During sleep, the spirit takes along the higher bodies, the desired body, the mind, into the spiritual world, where it basks in the harmonious universal essence, that is divinity. The spirit, when it gets out from this body during sleep, it goes with the higher bodies and it basks in the harmony of the universal essence. It is like recharging itself and its spiritual bodies, just as we will do to our mobile phones and electric vehicles. So the spirit withdraws in order to recharge the bodies. Then the rejuvenated desire body, in turn, recharges the etheric atoms, which also re-energizes the physical atoms to restore the energy level of the body for our next activities when we wake up. That is how we are re-energized when we sleep. A fully charged body is very refreshed on waking up. That is why sleep is very important. It is used to remove waste and restore energy of the material bodies. The second benefit of retrospection is that we leave our purgatory and first heaven each night and build into the spirit as right feeling the essence of the day's experience. Thus, we escape purgatory after death and also save time spent in the first heaven. Of course, this particular point will explain into details when we come to our next topic, which is death. What happens before, during, and after? The last benefits, but not the least, of retrospection is having extracted day by day the essence of experiences which makes for soul growth and having built them into the spirit, we are actually living an attitude of mind and developing along lines that will ordinarily have been reserved for future lives. So we are living them now when we do retrospection and reform ourselves. Regarding the renewal of the mind, we read from Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Retrospection supports the renewal of our mind, since we become more observant and alert in our daily activities. So, by the faithful performance of this exercise, we expunge undesirable occurrences from our subconscious memory, so that our sins are blotted out. The sinful records that are in the seed atom in the heart are deleted. Our aura commences to shine with spiritual gold, extracted from the experiences of each day, and as such, we attract the attention of higher beings and holy people who have walked this sacred path before. Having talked about retrospection, let us now look at concentration. What is concentration? In waking hours, the ego or the spirit is inside the body, and its force is directed towards the external environment in an effort to subdue the earth. At no time during waking hours is it able to get away from the impressions of the external surroundings and be free to work on itself. Such an opportunity for the ego, for the spirit to work on itself, is provided during sleep, because the dense body has lost consciousness of the external world, and the spirit is outside its body. That is the moment when the spirit is able to get away from the impressions of the outside environment. What we are saying over here is that it is only during sleep that the spirit is able to get away from the impressions of the outside world. The body is no more responsive to the external world. That is to say, if the spirit is to work on its material bodies at all, it must be when the outside world is shut out as in sleep. Yet, the spirit still remains within the body and in full control of its faculties, as it is in the waking state. What is being said over here is that during retrospection, even though we have not slept, we put the body in a position as if we have slept. It is so insensitive to the external environment. The spirit has not left the body, it is still in the body, but the concentration of the spirit is no more on the external environment. Not until such a state can be attained will it be possible for the spirit to work inwardly and properly sensitize its vehicles. Concentration is such a state. It is only concentration that can make it possible for the spirit to inwardly and properly sensitize its vehicles. When in concentration, the senses are stilled, and a person is in the same condition as in the deepest sleep, yet the spirit remains within and fully conscious. Most people experience this state, at least in some degree, when they have become fully interested and absorbed in a book, such that even when your name is being called, you hardly heard anything. You are fully concentrated in what you are reading. The individual who is desirous of the higher life cultivates the faculty of becoming absorbed at will in any subject he or she chooses, or a very simple object which he or she imagines. This is done to the point when the senses are absolutely still. You still your senses, the 5 senses that we have, you still them. Then the person concentrates his or her thought upon the different sense centers of the desired body, and they start to revolve. We are going to take our time and explain this. We are saying that when you concentrate yourself so much on a subject or an object, you still your senses such that you hardly hear anything from the external environment. And the point is that the desired body has certain sense centers. These sense centers, after we have concentrated so much on an object or a subject, we then direct our attention to the sense centers of the desired body. And every human being has a desired body. That is our third body. There are sense centers in it. We direct our attention to those centers and they begin to revolve. They revolve in the clockwise direction. That is the positive one, not the anti-clockwise direction. We'll see very soon. What are the sense centers of the desired body that we are referring to? There are 7 sense centers of the desired body. The desired body is not the physical body. It is an energizer, but we cannot see it with our physical eyes, but it is there. The 7 sense centers of the desired bodies, this is their location. 2 in the head, 1 in the larynx, 1 in the liver, 1 in the genital area, and 2 in the knees. These are the places where the currents of the desired body revolve. And we have said that you focus your attention to those centers and they begin to revolve in a clockwise direction. During sleep, the currents of the desired body flow and its vortices move and spin with enormous rapidity. It's for everybody. Those centers, they spin automatically when we sleep. But as soon as it enters the dense body, this dense body, its currents and vortices are almost stopped by the dense matter and the nerve currents of the vital body, which carry messages to and from the brain. So as the desired body currents flow, the point is, once we are awake and it is back into this body, its movement, its flow is no more as strong as it used to be when it was functioning external to this dense body. It is the object of concentration to still the dense body to the same degree of inertia and insensibility as in sleep, although the spirit is within, perfectly awake, alert, and conscious. So in concentration, you make the body more or less insensitive, but you are fully concentrated within. By so doing, we make a condition where the sense centers of the desired body can begin to revolve while inside the dense body. That is the condition we are making, so that the dense body still has the desired body within, and its sense centers are revolving in a clockwise direction. That is exactly what we want to do, not for it to leave the body. At first, the motion is slow and hard to bring about, but by degrees, the sense centers will make places for themselves within the dense body and vital bodies, which learn to accommodate themselves to this new activity. So as we try to do this, gradually, the dense body itself and the vital body will begin to accommodate the new flow, the higher flow of the desired body currents. Then someday, when the proper life had developed the requisite cleavage between the higher and the lower parts of the vital body, that cleavage must come, separating the vital body from the physical body. When that level is reached, and the currents are also flowing in the desired body, there is a supreme effort of the will, the individual's will, a strong determination to get something done. A spiral motion in many directions take place, and the spiritually focused person stands outside his or her dense body. That is how it happens. That by that strong will and by the vortices of the desired body rotating at a certain rate of spin, then the individual comes out of the body. He or she looks at the body as it will be for another person. The door of this prison house has been opened. The individual becomes born again, free to enter the body and also to come out of the body. As much at liberty in the spiritual world as in the physical world, functioning at will, a helper of humanity. The person desires to help all, ever ready to offer service in both worlds, in the spiritual world and in the physical world. The separation, and this is key, the separation of the vital body and the dense body, the flow of the desired body's currents, that separation is not by a set of words or a formula. No. If somebody tells you that, I will give you this word for you to come out of your body, it's a lie. It is fake. That coming out of the body is not by a set of formula of words, but it is by an act of will. You, the individual, it must come from within. It's an act of will, which is directed by you, the individual, and can only be helped by a competent person, and should be a holy person. But the holy person is not going to give you any word, but can only show you, and you will have to direct it yourself. Nobody is going to direct it for you. Like all other real spiritual information and practices, initiation is never sold. If somebody says, bring a material thing for initiation, that is fake initiation. It comes only as a result of the individual qualifying to merit it. It is earned. You must work for it, the positive one. All that we are doing on this channel is to give indication of the first steps which lead up to the development of the spiritual faculty. That is all that we are doing. And it is the individual who must do it himself, herself. On this channel, we only provide the information. No one can do it for anybody. Only you can do it by yourself. The most favorable time to carry out concentration is immediately on awakening from sleep. In the morning, before any worries and cares of daily life enter the mind. We are talking about when to do concentration. Retrospection, we say that is the last thing you do on your bed before you sleep. But concentration is the first thing you do when you wake up. At that time, we are fresh from the inner worlds. When we wake up, we are fresh from the spiritual worlds, and therefore more easily brought back into touch with them than at any other time of the day. Let the exercise be the first waking thought. Think about it immediately you wake up that you need to do concentration. Do not wait to dress up or sit up in your bed. Relax the body. Just relax the body. But relaxation does not mean simply a comfortable position. No. It is possible to have a very comfortable position, yet the muscles are tense with expectation, and that of itself frustrates the object, concentration that you want to do. For in that condition, the desired body is gripping the muscles. So you relax, and relaxation comes from the mind. Use your mind to relax the body. The first thing to practice is fixing your thoughts upon some ideal, or holding them there without letting them swerve. So you imagine an ideal and you keep your thought on that. It is an exceedingly hard task, that must be admitted. But to some extent, at least, it must be accomplished before it is possible to make further progress. Thought is the power we use in making images, pictures, thought forms according to ideas from within. So it begins with the mind, controlling your mind. It is our principal power, and we must learn to have absolute control of it. What you imagine at first might not be correct, but continue uninterrupted, day after day, exercising the will to keep the thought focused upon one subject, object, or idea, exclusive of all else. It might even be the case that you find yourself thinking of many things instead of the ideal that you want to concentrate upon. Do not be discouraged. In time, you will find it easier to still the senses and hold your thought steady. It is not a one-off practice, but persevere to get it done. To be effective, concentration must be done faithfully every morning without fail. We need to persist. Any subject may be selected according to your own inclination, your own temperament, and mental persuasion. Nobody is going to tell you, you do this, do that. No, it is your own persuasion, what appeals to you, so long as it is pure and it is mentally uplifting. Christ Jesus will do for some others. Those who love flowers, they may opt for flowers. What matters is to choose a subject or an object and you concentrate upon it. The object must be imagined as true to life in every detail. If it is Christ, we must imagine a real Christ with mobile fixtures, ability to move about, life in his eyes, and an expression that is not stony or dead. It should be a lively Christ. You must imagine that Christ, in case that is what appeals to you. We must build a living ideal. Whatever we imagine must have life, not a statue. No. If the object or the subject of your concentration, once it is high and lofty and of such a nature as to take you out of the ordinary things, then you are in the right direction. Your imagination is beyond time and space. And there is no better formula, and we are dropping a formula, and there is no better formula than the first 5 verses of St. John's Gospel. Taking then those 5 verses as a subject, sentence by sentence, morning after morning, will in time give a great insight into the beginning of our universe and the method of creation, far beyond any book learning. There are things beyond book. There are things that you yourself can work towards at and getting it. Now let us see John chapter 1, verse 1 to 5, what it says. And this is what we have said, that we can concentrate on this. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." We can take this verse when we wake up in the morning and concentrate on it. Go over it in our mind every morning. With time, something will happen. If it is a flower, we must, in imagination, take the seed. You don't just imagine the flower and leave it at that. You take the seed, and having buried it in the ground, the flower doesn't just come like that. It starts from somewhere, and the beginning is the seed. So look at the seed of that plant. Imagine it. Seeing it buried in the ground, fix your mind upon it steadily. Presently, we shall see it burst, shooting forth its roots, which penetrate the earth in a spiral motion. From the main branches of the roots, we watch the myriads of minute rootlets as they branch out and ramify in all directions. Then the stem begins to shoot upward, bursting through the surface of the earth and coming forth as tiny green stalk. It grows. Presently, there is an offset. A tiny twig shoots up from the main stem. It grows another offset, and a branch appears. From the branch, little stalks with buds at the end shoot out. Presently, there are a number of leaves. Then eventually, the beautiful, sweet-scented, colorful flowers appear. This is how we do concentration. You look at it from the beginning and follow it in your mind's eye throughout the process like that. Only when we imagine in such clear and complete outlines as mentioned do we enter into the spirit of concentration. There must be no shadowy, faint resemblances. No. At first, the pictures built will be but shadowy. We will not get it right first. There may be some problems at the initial stages, but we need to persist. The pictures formed might be of poor likeness, but don't worry about it. You keep doing it. But in the end, you can call up an image more real and alive than things in the physical world. By doing this concentration, you are making your imagination stronger, and you can call things up and they will appear. When you are able to form such pictures and succeeded in holding your mind upon the picture that's created, you may try to drop the picture suddenly. And holding your mind steady, without any thought, wait to see what comes into the vacuum. You know, all that we are saying in summary is that with concentration, you wake up early in the morning. The first thing to do is to take a subject, an object, and concentrate upon. Fix your mind, your thoughts on that. Then you follow it through its own history, through its own periods. As you hold that image, you drop it at once and see if something will appear in the blank that you create in your mind. You drop that image at once and see whether something will appear in there. For a long time, nothing may appear, and you must be careful. Guard against making visions yourself. Just drop the image in your mind's eye, but don't imagine anything in there. Just leave it blank and see whether something will appear. But if you keep on faithfully and patiently, every morning, there will come a time when the moment you have let the image picture drop, in a flash, the surrounding desired world will open up to your inner eye because you were working on your pituitary and pineal glands. So when that point comes and you drop it, you drop that image, the spiritual world will open to you. That is how you open your spiritual eyes. At first, it may be but a mere glimpse. When the images begin to appear by themselves, it may be but a mere glimpse, but it is an indication of what will later come at will, as you call it, it will come. In effect, concentration is focusing thought upon a single subject, a single object. It is the means by which we build a clear, objective, and living image of the form about which we wish to acquire knowledge. That is how spiritual investigations are done. So people do this, they grow in it, they mature in it, they can call back what happened thousands of years and it will reveal itself to them. That is how it is done. And we are talking about the positive one, not the negative one. When do results come? When you are doing concentration, some people want quick results, others not really, but generally, when do results come out of your spiritual exercise? The time required to bring results from the performance of the exercises varies with each individual and is dependent upon certain things. One, the way you apply the exercises. The stage in your evolution. Where have you reached spiritually? And your record in the book of destiny. Therefore, no general time can be given across the board. It depends on you yourself. Some who are almost ready obtain results in a few days. For some people, a few days, they have results. They can see spiritually. Some weeks. Others have to work months and years. And some people may not even achieve any results in this lifetime. But it doesn't mean they haven't done anything. The profit will come for them in the future. From the time that you are able to see into the spiritual world, from that time, awake or asleep, through life or death, the person's consciousness will never be broken. And this is key. Consciousness, through concentration and other exercises, will never be broken once you have achieved results. The person will lead a consciously and continuous existence, having the benefit of all the conditions which make for rapid advancement to higher positions of trust to be used in uplifting humanity. The essence of doing all these things is to uplift humanity. That is what the positive development talks about, to help others. What are the conditions? And we need to be ready. We need to be taking note of this. For the spiritual exercises to be effective, that is for them to lead to the development of the spiritual faculties, there are certain things we need to take note of. That as the individual begins to feel the needs of the higher life, it is important to control sex force. You don't abuse the sex force. And you need to control your temper. You need to cultivate a serene disposition. There should be less disturbance of the physical body during the day. That is key, because the more we use this physical body in, unnecessary things, the more we disturb it. And the more hours will have to be spent to restore harmony. That is why we need to use this dense body well within the day. So, if we gossip or recount to others our experiences during concentration, we stand at a very high risk. In concentration, whatever you see, whatever comes before you, you keep it secret. If you talk about it to others, you lose them. They cannot bear vocal transmission and will fade into nothingness. They have ears, for all you know. So whatever you see spiritually, keep it secret. Therefore, you should regard everything that happens during concentration as sacred and keep strictly to yourself. Do not regard the exercises as worrisome. No, they are not disturbing tasks. Estimate them at their true value. They are our highest privilege. Only when that's regarded can we do them justice and reap the full benefits from them. Nonetheless, the exercises alone are not enough. do not rely on only the exercises. The foundation for positive spiritual development is selfless service and purity of life. That is number one requirement. We will talk about the other exercises in due course. Meditation, observation, discrimination, contemplation, and adoration. We will talk about them in our next lectures. To conclude, in this fourth stage, in our journey back to God, we all have a choice to choose the narrow path or the broad way of the masses that leads to destruction. We have the choice to take definite step by going through esoteric training, by living the spiritual life, the Christian way. Of course, we also have the choice to reject any of them. It is our choice. The exercises are key requirements in esoteric Christianity training. Those exercises are key requirements so that we can improve our character. Key to it is to improve your character, your conscience, and your virtue, and make ourselves better in the service of humanity. At the end, we will be comforted. All these things will not end in vain. At the end, we will be comforted. As mentioned in Mathew chapter 25, verse 21, and we read, His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. We hope you have learned something useful in this episode. If you have any questions or topics, do not hesitate to comment in our comments section. Let us meet again in our next lecture on the topic, death. What happens before, during, and after? We thank you very much.
Filling up every space, no privacy. And silently, it could build and build until you finally see. Whoa, it's taking over, damn no closure, moving closer. No exposure, I just wanna be a loner. Some can't stay sober, looking over all this shit.